that still being upheld? I mean, like, or is it like being more, Israelite, more Jewish?
The history. There are, in some sense, three Jerusalems. Okay. There is the 1949 armistice line that separated Israel. Now we're talking about Israel from the West Bank. Okay. Jerusalem was in a sense right along that line. Okay. Now on the one side, it's called the Green Line, right? On the one side, on the western side, West Jerusalem, right? That's Israeli Jewish. On the eastern side is East Jerusalem. Right? It was Palestinian. It's being increasingly settled by Israeli Jews. Right? And then there is the Old City. Right? The Old City is now all of Jerusalem is Israeli occupied. But the Old City is where the holy monuments are. Right? The Dome of Rock, the Wailing Wall, Church of Nativity, things like that. And that's when people talk about when people talk about internationalizing or protecting, they're really not talking about all of Jerusalem. They're talking primarily about the Old City, right? And the old because it's the seat of monuments of the three major monotheistic religions, right? So that's the area that people focus on the most. Now, there has been talk about internationalizing, but that talk hasn't gone terribly far.
Another thing about in the bill that you look at, House of Representatives Bill 1105, the Omnibus Appropriations Act, the aid is justified, the aid to Israel, on the threat of Arab countries and Al-Qaeda, if you read the text. But it's going primarily toward battling Hamas and Hezbollah in asymmetric warfare, which is guerrilla warfare. So that's an interesting thing. Another thing I read on the bill, most bills when they poured money, they said they will not receive no more than this amount of money. When I read that text, it was Israel will not receive no less. So I was like, that's a sign of commitment. These people mean it. They're not going to, it's going to be a challenge to take that aid away from Israel. That was a sign. That's a challenge in itself. I don't know. But I don't think we can do much unless, the only thing we can do on this front is educate and make that aid conditional. It's an impossible thing. But on this American front, Professor May and everyone else, that's the only thing I see we can do here is educate and somehow, some way, throw a Hail Mary pass and get that thing being conditional. And that's what Americans can do, because your money is going off and off, supporting something that other people around the world are pointing and saying, is that an example of America's founding and current principles? Is that what they do? And in the process being used to justify, like Professor Bartley said last time, why is it that people don't would do 9/11? Remember?
But there's cutting aid to Israel through the Congress is not the only thing that can be done. This is why the academic boycott, I think, is significant. Because one of the things the academic boycott is an attempt not run through elected officials, but of individuals, right, in their institutions to educate, right, to isolate, right. And one of the things that one of our lessons that we found in South Africa, and I worked on the anti-apartheid movement there for a good bit, was that people did not like the feeling that they were being isolated and they were being publicly shamed. So some of the most effective boycotts early on in South Africa were not the economic boycotts, which actually came later, but the sports boycott relative to the Olympics, right? And then there was, the academic boycott following that. None of these had economic effect, but they were all matters of shaming the apartheid regime and those who supported it. My suspicion is that the cutting aid would be probably something that would happen later, but the academic boycott, perhaps I've heard sports boycotts talk about these sorts of things built from the ground and don't require people who are supported by powerful interests in order to be effective.
And I'm glad you brought that up. When I read the text, the Arab boycott is mentioned specifically in the Appropriations Act was considered a threat to national defense of Israel. It was a concern. So if that's working or not, I don't know, but it was mentioned in the text. And it seemed like it was something important that Israel was concerned about and the U.S. was concerned about. I don't know if that means it's working, but it was important enough for them to mention it. They considered it a threat to the defense. So maybe that is working like you're saying. I don't know.
Question about the boycott. Would that just be directed
I
at
apologize, I have to be somewhere else on campus.
would that just be directed at Israel and Israeli academics or other academics that are pro?
No, it's strictly Israeli academics.
What was the example that you?
Oh, no, I mean, mine was just informal. I was approached by Israeli academics to submit to a journal, and I asked where the journal was from, and she told me where I was.
How about those of us who don't have any, there's no way that I can have an effect in this academic boycott. How can I get involved and actually have an effect on this subject?
There are other things to boycott.
Right, well, I mean, I think one of the things that let me mention sort of let me mention I want to say a lower energy and a higher energy strategy, right? One of the things that's been mentioned before is that educating yourselves and others around what's going on is really important. When I got involved in this issue some 20-some years ago, one of the things that I found was that it's very difficult to get accurate information about what's going on. Not because it's not out there, right? In fact, one of the best places to get it is through the Israeli press. And the Israeli press, the Israeli press has far more open debate and discussion around, I mean, not just this, but any number of issues than you'll see, say, in the U.S. press, which is relative issue much more constrained. So one of the things is educating yourselves and others. Then the next step, right, above that is to look for what might be opportunities to sign on to petitions, to places to write letters. For instance, right, there was a large use of, the Caterpillar equipment. I make those big land movers and such. Caterpillar was exporting a number of its large land movers to Israel. Israel has been using them often to build those Palestinian homes. There has been a boycott of Caterpillar. Right? People write letters to Caterpillar saying that we know you're supporting. I don't know if the boycott's still going on, by the way. My information now is about a year old. So if you educate first and then look for places to write letters, opportunities that don't necessarily involve electoral people, those, I think, are the two ways that individuals can get more involved. Now, let me ask you, is that helpful at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Listening to all this conversation going back and forth, it's hard for me not to have the sense that I'm helpless, in this situation. You talk about the academic boycott, and as an undergrad,
You can do that.
yeah. Nobody's going to be involved in the journal. So, I feel like coming here is about the only thing I can do.
Right.
So, like you said, education.
Yeah, if you poke around, you'll find at least places to write letters, and the more people. I mean, this is my experience, right? My background. I'm not religious, but my background is Jewish, and and all the organizing I've done, I took part in. I had always shied away from this issue because it just felt like one I didn't want to deal with. And then the more, through accidents, I found myself having to confront it, and the more I learned, the more disturbed I got, and that's why education, I think, is important, an important element of all this. But as you get educated, you also see there'll be opportunities, oftentimes to write letters, to talk to others, things like that. There's been a shift over the last 2 decades in the media. The shift was that from Israel being the aggressed upon nation by the Palestinians to what I call, what I call the illusion of symmetry. Right? That's progress. Right? When we, as people educate and write and think about this thing, on the ground these things start to change, and as they start to change, they get reflected, I think, in some of the more powerful institutions.
You could get yourself on the mailing list of something like End the Occupation, because they very often have letter writing things going on. End the Occupation, Americans for Peace Now. Any number of websites are available for you
one, you can help us with attendance.